Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we are going to take a look at a couple of comics that you may actually have in your comic collection that you might want to invest a few dollars in by converting them from raw books into a graded book if it meets a certain threshold. So we're going to rip through the books, the rationale, and where that threshold might be for you to ultimately decide if these are books that you want to invest a few dollars in. For the purpose of this video, we assume that the all-in cost is about $70. That includes acquisition costs, clean press, and also the grading. You can make the adjustments for your actual cost versus the value based upon the services that you select, the grading company that you happen to go with. With that said, we are about to dig into a couple of books, and I do want to point out that this video was actually sponsored by comicspriceguide.com. And they are the source that we are using to analyze these numbers. They have one of the largest databases around with more than 1 million comics. And by looking at this screen, you might assume that we are talking about G.I. Joe issue number 1 as the first book that we are going to look at, but we're not. We're not going to look at that book. That book is almost a no-brainer to send in to be graded because that book contains all kinds of first appearances. So that one is a no-brainer, no doubt about it. If you have it and it's a good-looking book, you send that book in to be graded. We specifically are going to look at another Bronze Age classic, and it is G.I. Joe issue number 2. That is the book that we're going to look at. And potentially, again, you have this book in your collection, right? I know that I have several copies of it. And the question is, if you were to send it in, where would you draw the line for this book? It is the first appearance of Quinn. I think that's how you say that. Quinn, Kwinn. I think that's how you pronounce it. Awesome book, right? Great cover here. One of my favorite covers for G.I. Joe. I don't quite know why it is. But one of the great things about comicspriceguide.com is that when you look at their data, they give you the condition or the grade of the book. In the middle column, the raw value of that book. And in the last column, the third column, it is the graded value. So you're able to get both the raw and graded in one reference, which I like. And again, if we are assuming that we have an all-in cost of around $70, the question is, where would you draw the line for G.I. Joe issue number 2? I realistically would draw the line here at the 9.6. That is realistically where I would actually draw the line for this book. Raw, it is worth $34, and graded, it is worth $235 at a 9.6 near mints. Now, why would I not go for the 9.4, which is, again, a respectable grade? When you look at the value of this book at around $105, in my mind, there isn't enough cushion there. If I'm assuming a cost of $70 and a value of $100, there's not enough cushion for my liking to allow for the variability of this book. Right now, G.I. Joe, Transformers, super hot because of Void Rivals. But what happens a year from now? We don't know, but one could assume that maybe people aren't as excited about G.I. Joe as they might be right now. And so I like to allow a little bit more cushion for that volatility. Even if I'm keeping this book in my collection, I like a little bit of cushion there to allow for variability with value. And so again, you'll have to decide where it is that you want to draw the line based upon your actual cost. Maybe you only paid 60 cents for this book, and your numbers might look a little bit differently than mine. But when you look at the 9.6 near mint plus, it has a value of $235. And in my mind, there is a lot of cushion there. There's a lot of cushion there. And you have the ability to look at this book and eyeball it for a 9.6. That is a gorgeous copy. So if you're seeing multiple spine ticks, scuffs, abrasions, soiling, all of that kind of stuff, it's probably not a 9.6. So that's a really easy way to rule a book in and out. And I have videos here on the channel that actually go into a lot more detail on how to identify a higher grade book. All right. So the next book that we're going to look at is another book that to some degree or another is pretty hot right now. And it is X-Men issue number 130. This book has shown up on all types of hot lists over the last 2 weeks or so because there is an ongoing rumor that Taylor Swift is going to make an appearance as Dazzler in Deadpool 3, which I do believe is going to be rated R. This book right now is getting a lot of attention What happens if the rumors prove to be untrue, or if she appears, Dazzler that is, in the movie by Taylor Swift, and a year from now, the excitement dies off? You have to adjust for that variability. Now, with that said, X-Men issue 130 is a great book. Let's be super clear about that. It is a great book. And again, first appearance of Dazzler. Where would I draw the line with this one? I would actually draw the line at the 7.5, right? 7.5 and up, right? I'm drawing the line, and everything above that line, I think, is really good. Everything below, you might need to think about that. But with the 7.5, very fine minus. I think that there is cushion here. The raw value 120, the graded value 115. I might need to look at that because those numbers are a little too close for me in terms of what's happening there. We might need to look at that. But again, the data might be what the data are. Maybe there are not a ton of copies on the census at the 7.5. I'd have to look at that. But again, graded 7.5. Value of 115. If we assume again a cost of about $70, you have a little bit of cushion there. And I would say if you need to adjust to give yourself a little bit more comfort, you can look at the 8.5, right? 8.5, very fine plus. There's a lot more cushion there with that book to allow for the variability that may happen with time as this book cools off when the Taylor Swift rumors prove to be true or untrue, however you choose to look at it. But a 7.5 at a minimum, and if you want to give yourself a little bit more cushion, look at those higher grades. And thankfully, I have one copy of this book in the collection. The next book that we're going to look at is a classic book. This is a classic book. I have a single copy of this in the collection. It is Fantastic Four issue number 112. It's a classic because it comes from an amazing artist, John Buscema. It's a classic because it's an amazing cover by him showing a battle between Hulk and the Thing. This is a great, great book, no doubt about it. And the question is, where would you draw the line? The great thing about this one is you can go way down on the grade for this because this is such a solid book. You can go a lot lower. When this book dropped, 1971. With this one, you can drop all the way down to a 4.0 and still have a little bit of cushion there. And what you see is when you get to the 3.5, which is very good minus, you can see that the graded value is about $88. Like that's too close for comfort in my mind. But the 4.0, 125, a little bit of cushion there. If you need to add to that, you can go 4.5 or 5.0. You're going to have to look at the book that is in your possession, do a dirty grade of that, and be honest with yourself, right? Be honest with the condition of that book. The great thing is, again, at a 4.0, you can have a book that has some love, right? Has some spine ticks, has some stress lines, that kind of stuff. Still a great book. The other thing that I will add here is if you decide not to grade these books, putting these books in a Mylar will give them an overhaul, right? I mean, they're going to look amazing in a little bit of Mylar. If you decide to maybe spend a couple of bucks on it, you can always go with a clean or a press. You can also send them in to be graded, which is the overall point of this video. If you have any of these books, congratulations, because I think each and every one of them is a solid comic, no doubt about it. And I think I have every single one of them. I have every single one of them and very thankful for them. If you all have not yet subscribed to the channel, I want to encourage you to do so. If you're feeling frisky, you can also check me out on Whatnot. I've been doing a couple of Whatnot sales every single week, including Thursday at 8:30 and Sunday at 8 p.m. all Eastern Standard Time. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yo, should you practice art? Or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master. The one that's more than a rapper. The one that's an educator. The one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts. He's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan. Straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms of pure souls having them conversations. Synergy and combinations. You fly and we waiting. Indian style in the gold.